Hello, folks.
Hey!
Happy Wednesday. Luckily, we didn't catch. Of course, the phone rings just as we.
These robocalls, man. It's just.
Oh my god! Yeah, let's see. This is some window place in Rochester. Hold on. Here, this is how I handle it. Go F yourself. There you go. That's how I handle robocalls. Oh, God.
Craziness.
It's so ridiculous. Anyway, we have some pre-show stuff. Go ahead, Russ.
So let's talk about Dylan Betances for a moment, because I'm finding this little saga very interesting. It's amazing to me that baseball reporters who've been reporting in the sport for 20, 30 years haven't picked up on how players and agents work the media. Or they just want to be, and they don't care.
There you go.
But the funny part is, so we heard 24 hours ago the Mets are out on Dylan Betances, and he's going to sign with the Phillies. Still hasn't signed.
Right.
So what that tells me is he's trying to get every last dime out of the Mets because he wants to be in New York and he's friends with Beltran. We all know this.
Or because there are supposedly 4 teams in on him. The Mets, the Phillies. By the way, this is pale blue. The Mets, the Phillies.
No, it's not.
It is Tampa Bay and the Yankees. And he probably is not going back to the Yankees because the Yankees signed a guy they signed Adam Warren to a minor league contract. He's like recovering from, I think, Tommy John surgery. He's not going to be back till the All-Star break. But Betances is coming off a torn Achilles. He's probably not coming back until at least the All-Star break, and he's asking for $10 million. He's high because that's ridiculous. But hey, you can ask for whatever you want, and if somebody's stupid enough to give it to you, be my guest. But now if what he's doing here is he's playing off one of his former teammates, who's the manager of the Mets, and his former manager in the Phillies, and 2 division rivals, one who signed one of the other's pitchers. He's hoping that they'll step up and he gets ridiculous money for a guy who's not even going to pitch half the year. That's a joke, but that's the way baseball works.
It is the way baseball works. So I just think this saga isn't over because he would have signed with the Phillies already. Like, there's no reason he shouldn't have signed with the Phillies already. But clearly, the Phillies gave him a number, and he's going to get a number from all those teams, and he's going to go back to the Mets with that number and hope that the Mets match that number. Like, that's what's going to happen here.
Mm-hmm. If I had to bet, I think he's going to sign with the Mets. But it's only if the Mets step up. And the thing is, if the Mets
got $10 million out of Yoenis Cespedes' contract by redoing it. $10 million.
Well, I'm sure you heard the reason Cespedes did this is because he figured he was going to lose the case.
Right. He knew he was going to lose the case.
Right. Which apparently that might be good news to the Yankees because it was similar to what's going on with Jacoby Ellsbury right now.
Right.
Because Cespedes, from what I understand, went outside the network of approved doctors that the Mets had for his particular, and that plus he was doing non-baseball activities like riding horses and stuff like that. He did everything wrong. And Ellsbury did some things wrong as well.
Like a settlement.
Yeah, he's lucky. And when you're not playing for almost 2 years, you can't really quibble.
No, but I will say this. For all the angst that Brodie Van Wagenen gets as the Mets GM, this is a benefit of having a GM agent. There's not many benefits of a GM agent, but this is one of them because he's very sharp with that kind of stuff. He'd been working with that stuff his whole career, right? So clearly he knew how to finagle that and get that done without it being a lawsuit and paying lawyers. So the Mets are probably happy about that. And if you also look at the DeGrom contract, that's like the most reasonable contract now for any great starting pitcher in baseball.
Yeah. So all right, let's get started. We have some games to talk about. We have some players placed on waivers to talk about. We'll take some questions in the chat. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, December 18th, 2019.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. All right, there's some interesting games last night. We'll start with the one that I paid particular attention to, the Leafs and the Sabres in a key Atlantic Division matchup, which is sort of humorous to say because it's December 18th, but the way the divisions are sort of locked in especially the Atlantic, where everybody besides Boston and Detroit at the bottom of, and Ottawa at the bottom of the division are within like 2 or 3 points of each other, that these games are going to have lots of meaning through January, through the end of the season. Russ, this is again a type of game where you see the talent level of the Leafs and why people think that even though they got off to a slow start, that they're going to be a playoff team, probably finish top 3 in the Atlantic Division. But then you see within the span of, last night it was a span of I think 12 or 13 minutes, how they can undo everything that they accomplish with a period or less than a period of bad play. And last night, the Leafs were up 3-0 after 2 periods. Matthews scored a couple goals. The one goal was absolutely fantastic, weaving through the Buffalo defense. Linus Ullmark kept the game within reasonable distance. I mean, he made a bunch of saves, a 2-on-0 save on Mikheyev and Tyson Barrie, a couple other really good saves, kept them within distance. The Sabres get an early goal in the 3rd period on the power play. Leafs score on a breakaway to make it 4-1. And you would think at that point, the Sabres the Leafs were, safe. As long as they play competent defensive hockey and keep away, that they'll win the game. Well, that's the problem. They can't play competent defensive hockey.
They still don't have the personnel for that. They don't.
And here's where, and maybe it's immaturity, I don't know, but I'll lay out the situation how I saw it, and let me know what you think.
Okay.
They're up 4-1 in the 3rd. Kyle Oposo hits Travis Dermott behind the goal, in the end boards, knocks him down. He was down on the ice for a minute or so. It looked like he was either concussed or injured. No penalty call. He goes to the bench. The Leafs, instead of reacting the way I think most teams would do, which would be to go after Oposo, they try to open it up wide open offensively and try to score the 5th goal as their response.
Right.
They fail in that attempt, and the Sabres come back down the other ice, and Eichel picks top corner on Frederik Andersen, and you've got a game again. And then Oposo, to rub salt in the wound, scores to make it 4-3.
Right.
And if the Sabres had cashed in on a late power play, the Leafs would have blown a 3-goal lead in the 3rd period. Where have you heard that story before? But they get a shorthanded empty netter from Mikheyev, and they win 5-3. Full marks on the Leafs for stepping up against a division opponent. It was a regulation victory. Anderson played well. Most of their players played well. But there is this brain cramp with this team at certain points in the game that they just can't play that type of hockey that is necessary to win. And that's why I think a lot of Leaf fans are scratching their head with this team.
Yeah, I think it's fair. And I back what you're saying, because you could see it in their play. I mean, they're still one of the more offensively creative and good offensive teams, but that's not enough to win in this NHL anymore. You can't, just having the best offense isn't good. Just having the best offensive player like Connor McDavid isn't good enough. Those things aren't good enough anymore. This league is a lot more complicated than that, and you have to have defensive structure. Mm-hmm. And it's not because they don't have a coach that could teach it. It's because of the personnel. They still don't have good enough personnel to be able to lock down a game. And locking down a game is necessary in this league to win in the playoffs. You could get past it in the regular season because these games could slip into overtime. You get your point, and then everybody's happy, right? Because at the end of the year, you have 100 points, and you're in the playoffs. But then all that goes away for the playoffs. And that's why I hate the loser point and everything else, because teams sort of get used to letting the game slip into overtime, fooling around in 3-on-3 and maybe taking 3 good shots at it and then seeing what happens in the shootout, right? Oh, when all that goes away, you have to be able to lock it down. And they haven't been able to. And that's not Anderson's fault.
No.
That is the defense's fault. And partially not having enough defensive forwards, too. They're lacking a little in that, too.
I honestly, I used to put it heavily on the defense. I still put some of it on the defense because they don't really have a lot of shutdown guys who can play shutdown defense. Muzzin, it can do that. Justin Hall has shown a little bit more that he can do that type. That's been the shutdown pairing that they've used over the last few weeks, and they've done better. But Riley and Barry are offensive guys. So is Dermott. CC is sort of in between. I think he's played better since he's been in a bottom pairing role. But it's the forwards. And last night again, I hate he had a phenomenal game, but Matthews coughed up the puck on the eventually before the Oppozo goal, and then Nylander gave it up again, and then Oppozo comes in and it's it just turned around, and you can't. I mean, at a certain point in the third period, when you're up by 3 goals, don't make these passes up the middle because you think that the opening in the zone is going to be up the middle. You're asking to get burned.
I mean, look at we've talked about it. What kind of impact would like a Blake Wheeler have on the Leafs? Like, look what Blake Wheeler can do for Winnipeg. It's like having another defenseman on the ice.
Right, and that's one of the reasons why a guy like, and I talk about him because I like his game and he's been really effective in a limited role. That's why a guy like Pierre Engvall has been so effective for the Leafs. Yeah. He's 6'5", he's rangy, he's got a great reach, he's got good speed. He doesn't get pushed off the puck a lot along the boards, and that is a rarity for the Leafs. I mean, when you have smaller forwards like Janssen, and Hyman's not small. Hyman is one of the few exceptions. Marner is defensively in terms of puck pursuit, but along the wall, he's not very strong.
No.
Janssen is feisty, but he's not a bull on the boards. Kapanen is speedy. Nylander I don't think uses his size and strength to his advantage. They have guys like Spezza, who are veteran guys playing out of position on the wing, on the fourth line, and guys like Timashov, who I think is probably a fourth line. But there's not a lot of size and strength. Mikheyev is one guy who has been able to do that.
Yeah, like as an example, I see them doing their active sticks like you're supposed to.
Yeah,
but they don't win a lot of board battles. You're right.
And their puck possession has been miles and miles better under Keefe than it has been under Babcock. They're 8-4. Yeah, they're 8-4 under Shelton Keefe, which is a very good record. But for them to advance in the playoffs, they're going to have to learn to be more cognizant of what to do in the defensive zone to get the puck out of the zone. And sometimes throwing it up the middle is not the way. It's along the boards, getting it off the glass, and getting it the hell out.
No, but they'd be okay with the way everything's going with Keefe with the 8-4 had they started better. But
right.
Once you start out like crap, it is so hard to make up that ground. Like we always say, hey, now you got to play like 750 hockey instead of 600, and it's hard.
Right, and if they hadn't slumped, then it wouldn't have been Keefe. It would have been Babcock. Still, they would have kept him. I mean,
right. I mean that's true too, and that's where all lead. And we're going to go to a different subject, but all roads lead back to the backup goalie and the points lost. Like at the end of the day, that is the biggest stain on the season. Yeah,
and we'll talk about. There were a couple curious players placed on waivers today, and I openly pondered. Well, I'll mention the name. Eric Comrie was placed on waivers by Detroit because Jimmy Howard was placed on
activated.
Yeah, he's on LTIR. He was on the conditioning stint, and I think it's not going to last very long. So they're activating Howard, so they have to place Comrie on waivers. And I'm like, well, will the Leafs claim him? And he's a $700,000 goaltender, but is he really an upgrade over Michael Hutchinson? So that's.
I mean, to be honest, from what I know of Comrie, have seen of him over the years, it's debatable. And the Leafs can't afford to make a move if it's only debatable.
Right, because they're at 49 contracts right now.
Right.
So if they claim him, he's number 50, and then you have absolutely no flexibility.
Right. So that's why they probably won't get him.
Not to ignore the other side. Jack Eichel scored had an assist on Rasmus Dahlin's goal and scored his own on a nice wrist shot to extend his consecutive point streak to 17 games. He's one behind Gilbert Perreault for the league for the Sabres team record of 18 straight games. I'll say this, and like we've talked about Eichel recently because he's been really hot. He had a 4-goal game. He's now scored a point in almost a quarter of straight in a quarter of the season. He had hot streaks before. The question is whether he can do this for long stretches. Whether he can do it, whether it's not just a quarter of a season, whether he can do it regularly. Because if he can do what he's doing right now regularly, the Sabres have a chance to make the playoffs. If he just goes back to being sort of a point per game, maybe a little bit less player, then this team, then I think the Sabres are still borderline.
Sabres matchup against the Flyers tomorrow will be massive because the Flyers stink on the road. I proved that a long time ago. People used to bristle with me. Now they see what I'm talking about, especially with that stinker a game ago, not yesterday, but the game before that. So now playing the Flyers at home, even though they're down a bit, but you can't use it as an excuse because all teams are going through crazy injuries. And this is a big test for them. This is a game where if Eichel continues to stay hot and if somehow they beat the Flyers at home, I may believe in the Sabres a little more.
Yeah.
And you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. And this is the thing. It's like I've always sort of bristled at Sabre fans and their critique of Eichel over the last few years. It's like he's a bust. I mean, they didn't think he was worth $10 million. Okay, he's not Connor McDavid. So what? There's one Connor McDavid. Jack Eichel is a very good player. He's the number one center in this league. The question is he a franchise player? Is he somebody that carries a team? Up until recently, he's been a good number one center, but somebody who needs help. Right now, he's playing at a level where he's carrying the Sabres like David and Draisaitl are carrying the Oilers.
Right.
I think the thing is, it's just him. I mean, you have help from Ryan Hart.
Sort of slowed down.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Skinner isn't even having the same kind of year.
No. Well, and that was the thing. We're going to talk about wingers in a little bit after we go through some of the games. But that was the point that was made on Twitter when I was having a discussion with somebody, and Skinner. We'll go back to it. I want to.
I will say this though.
Yeah.
The buried story in Buffalo is the fact that Dahlin's going to end up with like 65 points this year.
Yeah, and that's he missed some games with the.
He missed some games, and he doesn't get any press.
And he's only got 2 goals. Last night was his goal, but he's got 17 assists already. So you're talking about he's going to average he's going to have close to 40 assists at the end of the year, and you figure he'll probably score, I'd say 10 to 12 goals, something like that. So you're talking about a 50-point defenseman in his second year.
Yeah.
And then you're talking
50-60 range for sure. I think he can get 60 if he gets hot.
And then the onus switches to Jason Botterill and saying, okay, I better sign him like Ottawa signed Thomas Chabot a year before his contract goes out because he has another good year. You're talking about paying him $9.5.
You have to sign him this summer no matter what.
Right.
There's no in between. You get him locked up. You offer him what you could offer him, and you get it done because he's only getting better, man.
Right. And I think they know that, but the question is whether the agent will say, "Oh, whether his agent does a Darren Ferris and says, "Oh, we'll wait until he's an RFA and then we'll see." Well, the problem is they're already paying one guy $10 million. They're paying another guy $9 million. You better get Dahlin at 8.5 on an 8-year deal. To sort of slow. Otherwise, you're going to be, and that can have ramifications in terms of some of the other players. I mean, Kyle.
There'll be a domino effect, but the idea is, let's say they don't, they'll never draft anybody as good as Dahlin for the next decade. That's the way it works with these offensive defensemen. When you get the right one that clicks in your market, I mean, think about it. The Rangers haven't even ever replaced Brian Leetch. It's more than a decade.
Yeah. Just touching on some other games, Taylor Hall's debut with the Arizona Coyotes was successful. The Coyotes beat San Jose 3-2. Hall assisted on Oliver Ekman-Larsson's game-winning goal late in the third period. Apparently in this game, before we get to the Hall stuff, apparently Evander Kane, this is according to Mike McIntyre, who is a Winnipeg reporter. He says Evander Kane ripped off Ilya Lyubushkin, who is a defenseman for the Coyotes, ripped his helmet off in the final minute with the team down 3-2. The referee called the penalty for Lyubushkin for not having a helmet.
Wow.
Instead of Kane. Then this is akin to what happened in the NFL on Sunday night when the Bills got called for a face mask when there was no face mask. The guy grabbed his chest. He didn't grab the face mask.
Just cue the clown music on that stuff. I mean,
oh my God.
We're in a replay era, and if we have referees that can't see the action on the ice, there should be someone in Toronto to tell them, hey, you know what? We're going to have to make this call. I don't want to do it, but we have to do it because it's just it looks horrible.
Yeah, it's just a bad optic. I mean, there's got to be can't there be a way of like Toronto calling down and saying no, that was not a penalty. You should be
yes.
You know, hey,
I know they don't want to get involved, but when things are clearly bad, like again, I'll harp on the Ryan Ellis hit. Nothing. And you know what? And I understand Flyers fans' reaction when they say, "Hey, Farabee got 3 games," and you know. Like why compared to some of the other stuff? There hasn't been any kind of consistency. But when you completely miss calls like that, and then after the fact, nobody gets a penalty, nobody gets suspended, it looks bad.
Now, the Predators had been struggling recently, but they go into Madison Square Garden and beat the Rangers, and now they followed up the next night by opening up a can of whoop ass on the Islanders and 8-3. I mean,
both goalies, they shellacked both of them.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the Islander team that is a really good defensive team the way that they've been playing this year. So I was a little surprised at that score. I didn't see much of that.
I'm surprised at the 8 goals. I'm not surprised otherwise because think about it. Goaltending equal. Yeah. Defense, advantage Nashville. I mean, I just talked about it the day before when I was talking about that Ranger game, how good defensively they are, and the addition of Fabro has just made them better. Mm-hmm. And then technically, they have a better offensive team than the Islanders. So it's not shocking to me with their size that they won some battles. That's why I said Nashville could be very dangerous if they get to the playoffs. They are built for the playoffs. And this is the first time where a team has really gone in, and I didn't get to see the game, and maybe people can, enlighten us, and that's fine. Because this may be finally a time where a team has said, you know what? Our system is better than your system. And that doesn't happen a lot with Trotz and the Islanders, but this is a problem when you play a playoff caliber team right now.
Well, the funny thing is, this is not your grandfather's Predators team. This is not the strapped down defensive team that Trotz had in Nashville.
Right.
This is more of a wide open. I mean, Laviolette has a history of being a more wide open offensive coach.
You know who his guy is this year? And I'm so happy to see it. Rocco Grimaldi.
Yeah.
That's his guy this year. And Grimaldi, for a guy that has been cast off, and I was very high on him, and I still am, because he was a guy that will give you everything on the ice. And let's see, let me look up his numbers here.
I'll look him up.
He has really had a nice year here. All right. He's got 16 points and 5 goals in 30 games. This is for a player they got off the scrap heap. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, he's already beat his offensive totals in 53 games from last year. He had 13 points last year, 16 points in 30 games this year. He did score 3 goals in 5 playoff games. So,
Yeah, I mean, but you know what it is? It's opportunity. I talk about it all the time. 10 minutes of ice time last year, 13 points. 12-13 this year, 16 points. A little more opportunity. Power play, getting a little more power play. Like, that's what it takes for somebody. He's a skilled guy. So I'm happy. And that Laviolette has unlocked Rocco Grimaldi, and that's fantastic because he's a pretty good hockey player. He is. Always has been.
Now, won't spend too much time in this, but the LA Kings beat the Bruins 4-3 in overtime last night. You look at the goal scorers for the LA Kings, and here's your future, folks. Blake Lizotte, Adrian Kempe, Matt Roy scored the goals in regulation, and then Kopitar scored the winner. I mean, these are the players that they're going to have to play, and if they're going to have an influx of youth and younger, cheaper players, these are the guys that are going to get opportunities. They've already moved out Kovalchuk. They're probably going to try to move out, the guys that we've talked about, like Toffoli and Carter and Brown over the next couple of years, and Quick. Although Quick, from what I saw, he made a couple of really nice saves.
He's in good form right now. He really is.
It may not be like if they decide, and remember, we're not saying that they want to dump Quick because he stinks.
No.
Or it's the fact that they've got two young goaltenders, and Campbell's not young. He's like, I think he's 27, but they have Cal Peterson and they have Campbell. They're in cap jail. They're basically, I think, looking to retool or rebuild, and they simply have to move out older players with big salaries. And if you got value there and Quick, if he can still be a goaltender who can win playoff series for other teams, because the Kings, I don't think they're making the playoffs in the next couple of years the way they're constructed right now. I mean, that's at least if he improves his value to where some teams want him, that's a good thing. And
I have breaking news.
Go ahead.
One of my favorite Twitter follows is the Atlanta Thrashers, and they just tweeted that they claimed Ilya Kovalchuk.
I saw that yesterday. That was yesterday. That's beautiful.
It's great, man.
Does that mean that he can line up on a line with Patrick Stefan?
Yeah. Patrick Stefan's not that old.
What a bust of a pick. That was the first pick in 2003, right?
01.
01.
No. 2000. Isn't it because 01 was Kovalchuk?
Yeah, no, right. It was. Well, I think Stefan was the pick before the Sedin twins.
Let's see.
I'm pretty sure. While you're looking that up, I'll talk about some of the other games. Okay, 4-3 Tampa Bay over the Ottawa Senators.
He's only 39, Patrick Stefan.
He's only 39. Jeez. 4-3.
1999. He was the first overall.
What was it? 99.
99. So I was off a year.
And that was the Sedin draft, correct?
Yeah. Let me see how that. Let's see who they could have had. All right. So he went first. The Sedins went second and third. Pavel Brenda went fourth.
Bust.
Not much of an upgrade there. Rangers really screwed up that one. Tim Connolly, fifth. He was a decent NHLer.
He got killed by concussions. He was great.
Yeah, he did.
Really good with the Islanders, great with the Sabres, and then he got concussed.
I mean, worse than Stefan, because at least Stefan played a lot of games. Brian Finley.
Islanders?
Brian Finley was sixth.
Islanders, right?
Nashville.
Okay, wow. Brian Finley.
Played 4 games in 3 years. And then this next one, this is a guy who I still like, but he just got killed by injuries, was Chris Beach.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
He was included in a trade. He was in a big trade, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think was it the Yager deal?
Yeah, I think so. Because Washington, yeah.
Yeah.
I will tell you that the number 9 pick, Jamie Lemark for the Rangers, he plays in a beer hockey league with Jason Matias, who I do on Stick to Hockey podcast. So he sees Jamie Lemark all the time, and I covered Jamie Lemark.
Yeah. Hey, I'm on the radio. Hey, I was the 9th pick in the first round.
Yeah. I wasn't at the 99 draft, but I did start to cover some prospect stuff with the Rangers when that crew was coming through. So
Dean Youngblood says that the Thrashers have cheap tickets.
Dean's right.
And Adam says Atlanta can have Bogosian back. Okay, so Tampa Bay beats the Ottawa Senators 4-3 in overtime. Anthony Cirelli with the overtime goal. Two notable things from this game. Nikita Kucherov was benched by John Cooper in the third period, and I believe in overtime as well. He made a giveaway on a goal by Connor Brown, it was Duclair in the third period. In this game, now it went into overtime, 4:41. In this game, Thomas Chabot plays 37 minutes.
Unbelievable. Nobody should play 37 minutes.
Note to DJ Smith, I think that's a little bit of an overkill.
Nobody should play 37 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, who was the defenseman who used to? Oh, Adrian Aucoin. Adrian Aucoin was the guy who regularly played over 30 minutes, but that was a different league. That was in a league where, a slower guy like Aucoin could get away with coasting around for a while. Yeah, I'm sorry, 37 minutes, even for your number one defenseman.
Way too much, man.
Right. And it wasn't like they were shorthanded with 5 defensemen or something like that. They were
right.
So that's not good. Now, you were at the Flyers Ducks game last night.
I was. Yeah, they did a nice job. They had the Hockey Fights Cancer signs for Oscar Lindblom. Players talked about him post game. Konechny, Giroux. That was nice. David Kasha scores his first NHL goal. He played against his brother Andre, which was, what's the odds of that? Because it didn't even look like David Kasha would ever get a shot in the NHL.
Right.
That was cool. His parents were there, and he gets a goal. Like, it really was a nice moment. I particularly love, Russ Cohen, the person, not the guy who covers stuff, loves covering guys with their first NHL goal. I've done it for so long now. It's great.
And that's happened twice this year, because we know Morgan Frost got called up from Lehigh, and his dad flew down for the game in Sunrise, and he scored in his first goal. That's always great. I mean, it's
great when you can cover it. It's a lot of fun. I posted a picture on Instagram and Twitter when Lindblom scored his first NHL goal. He was wearing the Ric Flair robe. That's what they were doing that year, the Flyers, and that was a cool moment. And so I do love those moments. But game-wise, night and day, man. The road Flyers are the road Flyers. The home Flyers are the home Flyers. They weren't going to be denied in that game. I do have some issues with the Ducks. The idea that we saw in reports that they give up a lot of high-quality chances to Gibson is true, because they did give up a lot. Now, they had 41 shots, and that's great. And Hart played great. Like, there was a shot towards the end of the third period where Getzlaf went in unaccosted and just let a heater go and went high on Hart, and he still saved that. Like, that's, Getzlaf can still bring it that way when he's wide open. So he was a good difference in the game. But the problem with the Ducks, and they have some good young players. I thought Maxime Comtois had a great game. Like, I really think he's starting to come along, and that's good. They just, when Fowler's not on the ice, there's not a lot of other guys who are doing good things with the puck, carrying the puck and everything else. So they're a little heavy on their dependency on Fowler, I feel. And I don't like Dallas Eakins as a coach. Like, I didn't stand in front of him, but I was listening to the post game, and he sort of got existential on one of the questions he gave. Like, he said it was kind of like a weird game and this and that, and it's just like the one thing he said was, and this is again where I pick at him as a coach. Mm-hmm. He said that they had a strong practice and looked well. Actually, here's how the question went: what did you think of, like, the third period, whatever? And he's like, they weren't in sync, because someone had mentioned drop passes that weren't working out. Remember, I said to you after the game, they shouldn't even have been doing drop passes at that point, but they were. So somebody asked him a question, and he basically says, yeah, we were really sharp in practice, so I don't understand this. And again, Dallas Eakins is the king of practice. He is. His teams always win in practice. His teams don't win enough in NHL games. That's my problem. It's good to have a hard practice. Don't get me wrong. But practice is just that. It's really there for the muscle memory and to get a few points across and let guys get loose and let guys go over some things, work their shots, sometimes work on the shootout. Sometimes, they do those drills now where the skills drills, that's all great. But winning at practice doesn't translate to winning at games all the time.
Yeah, but again, this is this is the Anaheim.
Dallas Aikens, because you always do.
Right, but this is the Anaheim that I thought we were going to see. Because remember, this is a year of transition for this team. They have a lot of young guys. They had some injuries on defense that forced them to trade for Eric Branson. I didn't expect much. I expected them to finish at the bottom of the Pacific Division, and I mean, I think, and unlike Edmonton, they're going to give Aikens a couple years to see what he can do. And if he can't do it there we know they have a wealth of young talent, Steele and Comtois and Terry and Max Jones. But their veteran core is fading, and they have to take advantage of one of the better goaltenders in the league in Gibson, and he's been overworked over the last few years and had some injury issues. So, yeah. Adam, the Bogosian draft was 2008, I believe. It was.
I think that's right.
Stamkos, Doughty, Bogosian, Pietrangelo. So. Yeah, that was the draft. Now,
hold on. So I'm doing a little math here.
Yep.
And it looks like Aikens' lifetime in the NHL is 50 and 79.
Right, and that Edmonton Oilers team was a disgrace.
14 and 16 with this team. Like his first year in Edmonton, where were better but not good.
Mm-hmm.
He had a .409 winning percentage. He's a great AHL coach, although there were years he didn't make the playoffs with the Marlies. I mean, there were two of those and one with San Diego, but that's sometimes happens depending on what prospects get called up and all. So he's a good AHL coach.
Right.
He's yet to prove it in the NHL. Is that fair? I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I think he was deserving of another chance, and if he doesn't get it. If he doesn't succeed at another chance, then maybe he's an NHL assistant or maybe he's an AHL coach. But yeah, I think he deserved it. Just touching on a couple games briefly. Columbus wins their second in a row, 5-3 over Detroit. Adam Ernie scores his first 2 goals of the season for the Wings. So hopefully
he got off the schneid. I think I told you a couple weeks ago when I saw him, I thought he was playing better than I saw. I watched the game online and I felt like he was doing the right things. So it's good that he got rewarded.
Yeah. Hurricanes beat the Jets 6-3, highlighted by the Andrei Svechnikov lacrosse goal.
Which was better than the first one.
Better than the first one, yeah. Question is, and somebody was asking this, he can do that behind the net and do the shot, but he couldn't carry that puck like around the ice on his stick, correct?
No.
Yeah. So I'm wondering whether they're going to outlaw it.
They will.
Yeah, because yeah, right, because it's actually contributing to the offense. So, I mean, I don't know.
I will say this. The guy who didn't want to see that goal was Luke DeCock, because he had to delete a tweet that he talked about Svechnikov not being such a great player, and fans bombarded him. And so then after that goal, they bombarded him again, so he deleted the original tweet. But he mentioned to the whole world why he was deleting it. And it's like,
you're undercutting yourself, Luke. Sorry.
It was not a good idea. None of it was a good idea. You probably should have just left it alone. Or if you're going to delete it, not tell anybody you were going to delete it. And in the end result, how could you not think this guy wasn't going to be a good player? I mean, you saw him in juniors. I saw him in juniors. Was there going to be any doubt that he wouldn't be a good player in the NHL?
No.
No.
No, not at all. Pittsburgh beats the Calgary Flames 4-1. Ironically, in this game, the 2 goaltenders, even though Cam Talbot gave up 4 goals, he was named the second star of the game.
Okay.
But Tristan Jarry wins again. It appears right now he's the number 1 goaltender. They're riding the hot hand.
They're just riding the hot hand. That's all.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the thing, Russ. Now now they have. I mean, I think more than likely the one goaltender that will get traded will be Jarry, because he didn't win 2 Stanley Cups.
Right.
But the one thing against Matt Murray that we've said over and over is he never can stay healthy. He always gets hurt every single year.
Right. So when you go up to Sidney Crosby, which Rutherford would, Crosby, everything gets run past Crosby. I'm pretty certain of that.
Right.
Do you want to get rid of Matt Murray? Or you want to keep Jarry? I can only do one. He's still going to side with Matt Murray.
Sure. Right, but there is a legitimate question because Jerry's doing this on a $675,000 contract. He's not going to be making $675 next year. And I don't think he's arbitration eligible. He's going to get a raise wherever he goes, and I don't think with their cap situation that they're going to be able to afford to pay him $3.5 million on a 2-3 year deal. I don't think they can do it. So it's going to force their hand to do something with one of their goaltenders. And I would agree. I think they're going to trade Jarry and not Murray, but it could be tempting because of the durability question with Murray.
I will just say this. I like Christian Jarry because he and Jordan Binnington make me look smart. Because those are two guys that I've been pushing for a very long time online, in rankings, and everything else, and it worked out.
And God knows you need every bit of evidence that you can get when it comes to that. All right, 2 other games, just touch on briefly. The Habs beat the Canucks 3-1.
Oh.
Yeah, I knew you were going to react to that. And the Vegas Golden Knights beat the Minnesota Wild 3-2. The reason I skipped over those 2 games is because I wanted to get to some questions, but I also so ask them in the chat as we talk about this. I believe Jeff Skinner right now has 18 points. This is in year 1 of a 8-year, $72 million contract, $9 million per.
You've seen him play more than me. What's the issue?
The issue is he's not playing with Eichel. The issue is I knew that they were going to do this. Kruger came in and he said, we need to diversify our offense.
Right.
We need to have more than just that number 1 line. So they moved a rookie, Victor Olofsson, who has scored a few goals 5-on-5, but mostly on the power play. But they put him on the line with Eichel and Reinhart. Mostly they've shifted some other guys in and out, but it's mostly been Olofsson.
Right.
And they've played Skinner on the second line. And at first it was Middlestat. Now it's sort of shifting between Evan Rodriguez and Johan Larsson. And he's only got 18 points. And he's getting first power play time. But 5-on-5, when you don't have a center that's going to set it up on a tee like Eichel does and draw the traffic to him so he can dish to Skinner, that's a problem. And the thing is like, there, of course – and they care that he produces, but they're basically saying you've got your money, so we need you to be the secondary offense. But the problem is he isn't really being the secondary offense. And I made the case when we were talking about that, on social media, because Jerry Sullivan, the guy who I do the radio show in Buffalo with on Thursdays, I said, well, when you move him to some line other than Eichel, that's what's going to happen. There are not many wingers in this league that drive offense. And I mentioned Ovechkin. Dan Petru threw up Panarin, and I said, yeah, I think Panarin is one of the few. Jágr in his day. Mm-hmm. You can count him on, I'd say, over the last 30, 35 years, you can count him on 1 or 2 hands, the number of wingers that drive offense.
I think there's more now. Like there's Ovechkin, there's Rantanen. Like there's a few more now.
Well, okay, and this was the thing. A Leaf fan said Marner, and I said, well, okay, I'll grant you this. Marner is a playmaker who played center in junior, who's now playing the wing. He's a playmaker more than he is a scorer. But until they hooked up last year, Marner was a 60-point scorer. He scored 94 with Tavares. Now, does that mean Tavares is driving that line, or does that mean Marner's driving that line? I think it's both. It's one feeding off the other.
But I think it's fair to say Marner drives offense. But a few more now that do.
Yeah, I mean, Jágr back in his day, sure.
Yes.
But, Mike Bossy needed Brian Trottier. Yari Curry needed Gretzky. The more than, Brett Hull needed Adam Oates.
I mean, Pavel Bure drove offense.
Right. But
he was a rarity.
Right, but Phil Kessel, you could say, well, he had Tyler Bozak as his center. But Tyler Bozak was a pretty good playmaking center.
He was.
And and still is. And the thing is that, Phil Kessel proved he was a complimentary player when he went to Pittsburgh.
Yes.
A team that used him as the star wasn't going to be successful.
That's fair.
And Toronto wasn't. They made the playoffs once while Kessel was in there. Now, was that a symptom of bad management or whatever? Possibly.
Did Matt Sundin drive offense?
No, yeah, but he was a center.
Did a little bit.
But he was a center. They paid him at center. I mean, I don't
think winger right before they played him at center.
He was a winger in Quebec. He was a right winger, and I think honestly, he would have been better suited to play on the wing. But the need for the Leafs to have a number one center was so great that they said, Matt's, even though this is not your best position, we need you to play there. But then they never provided him with good wingers. It was always Michael Renberg and Jonas Högland.
And that was Renberg way past the Legion of Doom.
Right. Steve Thomas was good, but he was an older Steve Thomas. McGillney was in his elder days. So all these things. But my point is that Skinner was not a driver of offense. He was a compliment. He was a great compliment, and he's never scoring 40 goals again. Never. He hit it.
Plays with Eichel again.
Unless he plays with Eichel again, and that sort of defeats the purpose with the Sabres because you want all your offense on one line.
There's going to be a point this season where he will be with Eichel again in games. I'm sure it's already happening.
Well, where I think it's going to happen when Eichel slows down. If this is a blip and Eichel is scoring 17 consecutive games, once that breaks, and if he goes back down to sort of a point per game player, then you're going to have issues where maybe you have to put Skinner. And hi Anna, we see Anna's tail. We're going to have a Twitter account that's going to be called Anna's Tail.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay. All right. Let's take some questions in the chat.
Actually, I'll be honest. I haven't started an Instagram for Kaya, and I won't do that account for Anna because if they get more followers than me, I'll be pissed and I'll delete it.
Yeah, but Anna's cooler than you because Anna has the multicolored hair.
I know. Yeah.
Jeez. Okay. Let's see here. Kessel drove the offense on his line through Bonino and
I'll answer questions like Dr. Evil.
Yeah, the problem is that was a third line. That was not a number one line. I'm saying you don't have, when you're a player that's driving offense, you're not playing on the third line. You're on the first or second line.
Right.
All right. Adam asks, what goalie is more likely to be moved first, Rene or Quick?
Quick.
I don't think the Preds are. First of all, I think Rene has a no move clause. He wouldn't have re-signed in Nashville if he wasn't guaranteed to.
He could be chewing out. Like this could be like the last 2 years of his career. Wouldn't shock him.
Yeah. So, okay. Following on that, El Guapo, will the Kings trade Quick or Campbell?
Quick.
I mean,
Campbell. There's going to be a time where it's going to happen.
Yeah, Campbell is a backup. There's a market for him, but remember, he just signed an extension. He's making less than $700,000 this year, but then he goes up to 1.6.
Right.
So then the value for him as a backup, I mean, it's still pretty decent value.
It diminishes. It does.
Right. Esmir asks, as Perla whines. Yeah. Esmir asks, I read that Boston is looking at Kyle Palmieri. What would New Jersey get back for him? Well, I don't think they're going to trade Kyle Palmieri. Yeah, I mean, I'll use the argument that you used yesterday with Subban. They have to have somebody playing for them. Right. And Palmieri has been consistent, and I think he's under contract for at least a couple more years. Let me look at his contract info. Palmieri has another year at 4.6. So it would make sense for Boston to do that. That would be the same thing they did with Coyle, trade it for somebody who has term. I just don't think that the Devils are going to trade Palmieri. I think there's a better chance. First of all, they're going to trade all their rentals. They're going to move Vaughn and they're going to move Simmons if they can. The Miles Wood has been talked about. I think there's a chance that they could move Subban over, but Russ makes the valid point that their defense isn't exactly deep, so they may have to keep him at least another year. Okay. Let's see here. Why is Perla crying?
My wife walked in the door, and that's it. Things blow up at that point.
Okay. Goalie FP. It's balmy in Buffalo, goalie FP. How long until the Rangers trade Kreider, and what can they get? Now, this was mentioned yesterday on PSN's Insider Trading, and that there's still possibility of contract extension, but they think that Kreider is the next one to move on in terms of he's going to be the guy after training.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that that's exactly the plan. I think people are just looking at that, but I don't know if I think they're going to wait till the last minute to trade Kreider. I do, and I do think he could be one of those guys that ricochets back after the season, but they could get a conditional first, and they can get another player.
Let's see here.
But that player won't be like a roster player. Excuse me for a second.
Yeah, I know, no problem. I'll answer this one because Andrew, I think there's a chance, but the only way that I think that Subban will get moved is if New Jersey, and remember, like Russ and I were at the draft last June in Vancouver. After day one on Friday, there was a lot of talk about the Leafs and a couple other teams being in on Subban. The Leafs were in that situation where they had just traded their first round pick to relieve themselves of Marlowe's contract. And the Leafs were only going to be in on Subban if David Poile retained salary. I think now Bray Shero is in that same boat. If he wants to move Subban, but the thing is, the motivations here are different. Nashville wanted to move Subban to open up space for Duchesne and to open up space for Roman Josi. Jersey is going to trade a ton of cap room this year. They may need Subban's $9 million.
They may need that. I don't think he's getting traded. I don't.
Now, one bit of information here. Justin Williams apparently has been skating over the last few weeks. There's been some talk. Pierre LeBrun mentioned this yesterday that Justin Williams may be ready to step back in. So this is sort of like the Matt Sundin thing where he came back halfway through the year. I mean, that's all fine and good. But the thing is that LeBrun reported that Carolina is relatively tight against the cap and that Williams might be looking for an incentive-based deal, but they don't have the flexibility to give him that deal. So he could.
I think what's keeping him out of the lineup the whole year. Like, I think they gave him an offer that he didn't like.
Yeah, but it doesn't sound. It sounds like he wants to go back to Carolina. But if they, and LeBrun pointed out two names. Pointed out obviously the signing of Jake Gardner and one other move in terms of their cap that has limited them in terms of being able to offer a deal, the Marlowe deal, to take on the Marlowe deal. They got a first round pick for it, but it cost them $6 million against the cap. Now they could trade the Marlowe deal. They could find somebody to take that on if they were looking, but then they'd probably have to give up a high draft pick to open it up. And is that worth bringing back Justin Williams? Probably not to their mind. So, I don't know. I think that, I'm sure they want him back, but LeBrun said that there's a possibility that other teams might get into it. I don't know, where, I don't know who, and maybe that's just being floated out there to get.
I think it's just being floated, to be honest.
Now, the Ilya Kovalchuk thing, they said at least 4 teams, maybe up to 5. Florida was mentioned, both New York teams. The Bruins, the Canadians.
Why would the Rangers get Kovalchuk? For what reason?
I don't know. I don't know, but that's
Come on. Some of these are unrealistic.
Well,
so explain this to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to trade Chris Kreider, but I'm going to sign Ilya Kovalchuk. Does that make any sense to anybody on earth?
No, but I think the people see that it's $750,000.
Doesn't matter. You still have to fit them into a construct of a team.
Right. Now, again, I make the argument, like, it makes sense for Montreal because Montreal doesn't have enough scoring. It makes sense for Boston because Boston has the core group and they're looking for an additional secondary guy.
Like I saw some Boston writers don't want him there.
Right. But I mean,
I know.
I don't think it's a perfect fit, but but they were in on him 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So, and if you're in on him for $6 million, a year and a half later, if he's out there for $700,000, you're still going to think about it.
Can I tell you the worst mistake a GM can make? When they like a player that they didn't get and they get him after the fact. How many times does that ever work out? I'll use baseball and use Robbie Cano as the example where all of a sudden now he's on the Mets. Well, you got Robbie Cano a little too late. Right. Those kinds of things, it almost never works out because the player is towards the end of their career and that's not the guy you were going after. It's just the same guy, but he's diminished.
Esmir asks, do you think if the Habs falter and miss the playoffs this season that Bergevin will be fired?
Nope.
No, because honestly, they'll never say this to their rabid. I said rabbit, and I think Anna thought I said rabbit. The Canadians and their management will never admit this to their rabid, psychotic fans. But I don't think they were really optimistic about making the playoffs this year. That they went after Aho, which was more kabuki theater than anything because Aho was always he was looking for a deal that could make him more money in the short term than that Carolina would match. I don't think he would have been willing to go to Montreal, but I don't think he knew. I think he knew that it was never going to happen. They really didn't make any other big moves. They were praying to God that Domi and Tatar and Kotkaniemi and all the guys that had good years last year would repeat and have good years this year. And that hasn't been the case. Now they're still in the playoff race because Tampa and Toronto have disappointed early on, but I still think that they're going to fall short. So
yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah, let's see a couple more quick ones here. Caleb, did anyone see John Marino playing this well for Pittsburgh, playing top pair minutes, 15 points, plus 12 as a rookie?
Yeah, I talked about Marino 2 weeks ago and probably mentioned him another time since. Absolutely.
And was he an Edmonton draft pick? Is this what he's saying, that he was traded for a 5th or 6th from Edmonton? I didn't know that.
I don't remember who drafted him. Hold on.
I thought he was a Pittsburgh draft pick, but if Caleb is right, I will.
I watched him play in college. Yeah, he was an Edmonton draft pick. Yep. Well, wow. But I just don't think he went signed. I think they signed him as a free agent. Hang on.
Well, let's look at. how many years did he play in college after his draft year? He could have been, one of those.
Yeah, I gotta look at it.
I'm sure this is entertaining to everybody while we look up. Okay, John Marino. He was a 2015 6th-round pick of the Oilers. So he would have. He went 3 years at Harvard, and this year is his first year. I'm almost sure that he signed as a free. No, he was traded. He was
traded. Okay.
So this is what it was. His draft rights. He was traded on July 26th from Edmonton to Pittsburgh. So they got a 6th-round pick in 2021 for him. His draft rights would have gone out August 15th. So
right. So they knew they couldn't sign him. So
he wasn't going to go to Edmonton. So Pittsburgh got him for a song. And
again, Edmonton has a bad history with college defensemen. Justin Schultz, in part, they didn't know how to use him. Justin Schultz is a hell of a player. Think about this: Pittsburgh got Marino and Justin Schultz, and they're both Edmonton guys.
Well, originally Schultz was an Anaheim guy.
That's true.
Yeah,
but he also played in Edmonton.
He signed in Edmonton as the college, because he wouldn't sign in Anaheim.
Right, but I'm just saying they got 2 defensemen from that franchise.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll end the show here while there's barking and meowing and
all kinds of stuff going on here.
Just you realize, people, nothing's going on here. Nothing, not a thing. Okay, we'll be back tomorrow, hopefully, with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz,